out with Adam Jardy and Whitney Harding on deck. Adam, go ahead.
Ryan, it's good to see you again.
You too, Adam.
So everyone's obviously had a different path toward kind of getting back to the form that you guys were in before the pause. And with Justin, I just wonder what you're seeing from him right now, especially offensively, where it seems like it's getting harder for him to find his shot. And I know some of that's Big Ten play, but what are you seeing from him right now that he's still kind of working through?
I see a lot of Justin's shots being right on, a lot of them being front rim though. And I think some of that is, probably attributed to his legs and coming back off of the layoff. I think some of that's probably timing. And, I think the reality is in Big Ten play, his window to get shots off, we know this because we've experienced it here the last few years, is going to be really a short window. So he's got to stay the course. He can't get too frustrated or can't get too high or too low. Great shooters have short memories, and I know he's got a proven track record. So we've got a lot of confidence in Justin and how he'll respond to a couple games where maybe he's not shooting as well as he's accustomed to.
Well, one of the things I know you've, as a staff, have consistently talked about with him is that when he's at his best, he's really hunting his shot. Have you sensed it as he's gone through this, any hesitancy on his part? Is he hunting his shot as aggressively as he needs to or can?
I think he is. I think he's hunting his shot. We've talked about shot discipline a lot with him here recently, because I think if you look back at his threes, we charted last week, his percentages of shooting when he's on the line or thereabouts versus NBA level 3-point shots. And the discrepancy is it's wide. And not saying Justin can't shoot with range or that we would want him to take a couple of those, but I think when you're depending on 25 footers as opposed to 22 footers, even the greatest shooters in the world, there's gonna be a drop off. So I think with him, big part of it is mentality. I spoke to him after the game the other night, and I said, think back on your career, and when you've been your best, or you shot great, or you played well, how many of those times were you in a frustrated state? Were you upset? Were you hanging your head? And I think, hopefully giving him some perspective. The advantage for our staff is we have a lot of experience with him, and he's played a lot of games here as a Buckeye, so we got high level of confidence in him, and we want him to keep taking great shots and just having a belief that those will go in.
All right, next up, Whitney Harding with Griffin Strom on deck. Whitney.
Ryan, one thing we talked about with Zed was a lot about the outside shooting struggles, but also how important it is for this team to have a post presence, whether that is shots or rebounding. I mean, how much does that post presence help when the outside shooters are struggling a little bit?
No doubt, Whitney. I think, it's no different in football. If you're only a good passing team, that's going to have limits to it. There's going to be a ceiling to how dominant you can become offensively. And same way goes in basketball. If you're just a good shooting team, but you can't score the ball inside or don't pose enough of a post presence at the rim, you become easier to guard. So we want to have a healthy balance always offensively while playing to our strengths. And Zed is one of our obvious strengths of our team. I think we're blessed in the fact that we do have I think we have a roster that fits together very well, because we have guys that are very different from one another. I don't think you look up and down our roster and say, man, there's two guys that are really very similar. Maybe you could say that about Joey and Zed, but I think that's it. We've got a lot of guys that have some real versatility. And I think versatility is a word you've been around our program. You've heard us say that a lot, and being able to score it inside and out and have guys that can do that, it makes you really tough to guard.
Your audience talk to the Texan and put it in football terms.
That's right. Yeah.
Now, Penn State, second time around. How has this team changed since December? is there something different you guys are preparing for this time around?
I think Penn State is their identity was forming as we played them. They're getting to know their coach and what he wanted out of them. I think we could see hallmarks of who they were becoming. I think now you can pour some concrete into that. They have a real identifiable DNA on film. It shows up in their stats. They've had closer games. There's a way that they want to play, and we're going to have to counter that with being very strong-willed about how we want to play. And if it's their type of game, that's going to favor them. And if it's our type of game, I think that will favor us. So we got a lot of respect for them. I think they're very well coached. I think their team takes on a personality that their head coach is presenting. And, I think we're going to have to be ready for a real dogfight for sure.
Sorry, guys, I got one more follow-up to that. What is the DNA now? What is that kind of, identity that they have created?
They're going to fight you for everything. I think they have a real chip on their shoulder. They play like they're trying to prove something, like they're a bunch of underdogs. I think that's the mentality that their coach is forming. He has a background from being a Butler Bulldog for years under Brad Stevens, and you can spot that from a mile away. But we've got a lot of respect for him, and I think that mentality, that DNA that maybe was forming a month ago is now more obvious from a coaching standpoint. So we respect them a lot, and we know it's going to be another Big Ten throwdown.
Thanks.
Sure thing, Whitney.
Griffin Strom up and Colin Gay on deck. Griffin.
Coach, you talk about that change in kind of DNA and mindset and whatnot, but I wonder how much of the differences in Zed, referred to Penn State as a totally different team since the first time you guys played him. I know one guy that they didn't have when you guys played him the first time was Greg Lee, the 6'9" forward. I wonder how you think his kind of inclusion in the lineup now as a starter as well for them, giving them another, big body along forward. Kind of changes things for their lineup and how they play.
Yeah, I think he adds to their depth too. Penn State maybe wasn't the deepest team, so adding a guy that they can depend on, to bring certain things to the table. He's an older guy. I think they know what they're getting out of him. To me, what I see on film with him is he has injected some energy into them. He's a live athlete, and he's a competitor. He plays hard. He's versatile. They like to switch a lot of ball screens defensively. So, adding a mature guy to what they already had, I think was probably, Micah could tell you that, but probably very needed, and allowed them to bring another player off the bench, giving them a little bit more depth. So he's sort of solidified them, and, they've had some close games here. I just think the way that they have played in these games is sort of what sticks out to me. The grit, the toughness, the loose balls. It's been a part of the Penn State program for a long time, but it's sort of presented itself, I think, with this team more in the last 2 to 3 weeks, from what I can see. And so we're looking forward to the challenge, and they're coming on for sure.
One other guy with them I wanted to just ask about specifically is Pickett. He's the guy that, had a really big game against you guys last time, and that seemed to kind of, allow him to explode here in this recent stretch. And he's kind of been the first option scoring wise for them in this latest run here. I wonder how much more a part of the game plan and the scouting report he is for you guys the second time around.
Yeah, he was a part of it the first time, but I think in watching them play, from being in some of our staff meetings, I'm not watching the offensive side of the ball as much, but and watching them play when I'm at home or seeing them play on television, the ball's in his hands a lot more than it was in game one. That's obvious to me. I think he's a really good decision maker. He's an experienced guy, scored a lot of points in his college career before he got to Penn State. I like his basketball character. He's about the right things. And I've seen him emerge, and I think the numbers would prove that. We're going to have to be ready for him. It's not one guy. The way they play, they bounce him off a lot of ball screens. They screen, they rescreen him. They're going to try to lay bodies on you and free him up to get him angles on the perimeter. And he's good at that. So it's going to be a team effort. And we're going to have to be definitely connected defensively.
Thanks, Coach.
Sure thing.
Next up, Colin Gay. We'll go back to Adam Jardy. Colin.
Hey, Ryan, I don't want to look back super far, but I just wanted to get your perspective here. I'm obviously, after the Northwestern game, Chris was talking about how it was one of the worst defensive rebounding performances in 4 years. And I'm curious about, I mean, what was it like watching that performance from home? Like, what were you seeing? Was it a different perspective? I don't know. Like, what was the perspective or kind of the starting point when you eventually did return to the team? What did you see there?
First of all, it was miserable. It was, I did not know how. I've never watched a game on a coaching staff I've been a part of watching my team. And so I didn't know how I'd react, but I was like a total fanboy watching the game. And when EJ leads the game off hitting 5 threes, I'm banging on doors. I was in our guest room. I was locked up in my guest room, but I was talking trash and going crazy. And so it was definitely a different perspective. But to your point, the defensive rebounding, I don't know that I saw anything different than I would if I were a part of it. What I think is we got to show continued improvement in the areas that have bitten us repeatedly. And that's what good teams do. And that's a challenge to our team, that we have to zero in on those things and be intentional about improving in those areas. And if we do that, I think good things will happen, because we've had good success, but we've had a couple things on both sides of the basketball that have continually bit us. And, we got to address that.
Have you, I don't know, like, as you've gotten back to, courtside, as you've gotten back into practices, have you seen a different approach from those guys in the paint, knowing that those struggles are there? I mean, obviously they're still working their way back from that 3-week pause, but I mean, yeah. Is it kind of a different kind of heightened approach in the paint, or what have you seen? How have you kind of led those guys to kind of take initiative in that area?
Yeah, there has to be an intentionality about it. And I think when you're dealing with 17, 18, 19-year-old young men, or more in our case, we've got some 24 and 20, seems like 26-year-olds on our team, but you have to, and from a coaching standpoint, not only talk about it and make them aware, but we got to practice it. And it's not something magical. This is not the NBA where you have one practice every 10 or 12 days. We're practicing. We've got to be intentional about the areas that we want to improve in. We want to talk about it. We want to show them those issues on film, and then ultimately, change our behaviors. And I think, I read this, and I've read a book talking about the laws of behavior change. And, you have to make it very obvious to guys and make it rewarding. What's the reward for us? Well, the reward for us is we're going to start to win possessions, and the Big Ten possessions are like gold. So if we take care of this, and we can shore up these 3 or 4 areas, we're going to win 10 to 12 more possessions a game. That's the difference between winning and losing in a big way. I don't need to tell you guys that. A lot of times games come down to 1 or 2 possessions. So I do think our areas are fairly, we've been consistent, fortunately or unfortunately, with some of our hindrances, but I'm confident, we're getting a rhythm here. I think we're getting healthy. I'm confident that we'll see improvement here as we head into the thick of the Big Ten schedule.
Thanks, Ryan.
Yep.
All right, and we'll finish up with Adam Jardy. Adam.
Excuse me. Well, one more thing just about the team shooting, and you've touched on this a little bit with talking about Zed, but as you have planned this offense and worked on this offense, how much do you want to lean on being a 3-point shooting team? I mean, I know you talked about it being a balance, but how much of this team's identity do you think is as a perimeter team, and how much do you think is as a post team?
It's a good question. I think you have an idea coming into the year of what your strengths and weaknesses will be. And from an offensive standpoint, I think we had some returning guys that we felt like we knew what we were going to get. But, our ability to shoot the ball it's been really good. I mean, we've been a top 10 3-point shooting team, I think, or thereabouts in the country. And I don't know that I would have forecasted that. But one thing I think offensively we'll always do is we will continue to ride the wave of what's working. And we have an identity that we don't ever want to stray from. So I don't want to become a finesse, all perimeter oriented, 3-point run and gun team. I don't think that's sustainable to win at a high level in our conference at this level. But we're going to continue to do the things that have been working too. And so I think there's a balance of playing to your strengths and continuing to find ways to replicate what's working, Adam. But we always want to be a team that plays inside out, side to side. I definitely would like to see us get to the free throw line more, because I think when we're at our best, ultimately, I think that'll be a big part of our game, in addition to the 3-point shooting and the versatility that we present. And I also think that we're evolving. What we've learned about Malachi Branham here in the last 10 days to 2 weeks, are some things maybe we didn't know before that. And we knew he was super talented, but he's emerging. Let's not forget a couple guys that we hope to add, Justice Sewing and Seth Towns, and what they can bring to the offense. So I think this will be a fluid and evolving offense as we go on. I hope it does. I hope it continues to evolve as we keep our identity. But I think throughout it's going to be changing a little bit more this year than maybe years past.
And losing Michi, I mean, I know that's you get guys back, you come back, Holtman comes back, and then Michi's out. It just seems like it's a tough year for those kinds of things. What impact has that had on the rotation, and who needs to? I know it's kind of a collective thing, but who needs to fill in there and try to replace some of the things that he can do for you?
Yeah, I think it's just a mentality of next man up, and having a group of guys that will step up when called upon. Urban Meyer, being your best. What did he say? Can you be your best when we need you most? And your very best when we need you most. And I think we have a unique roster in the fact that we have 13 or 14 guys that can all help us win. I don't think I've ever been a part of a team or a program where you could say that. And I do believe it. So, losing Michi, obviously we lose, his dynamic playmaking ability, his quickness, I think is something that affects the game on both ends of the floor. I think what you're seeing with Michi is a guy that's getting better and better by the game, becoming more and more consistent. Hopefully Michi will be back here soon. But we love the growth that he's been about, and what he's brought to the table for us, for sure.
Thanks, Ryan.
Welcome.